Up to this point, I have covered many former members of the infamous idol group ZOC, but now let's focus on the one that started it all. But prepare yourselves, this episode of Otaku Files is not for the faint of heart. We're going to talk about singer-songwriter Oomori Seiko. Most of us outside of Japan may not be aware of some of the more interesting personalities within the Japanese otaku landscape, so I thought I'd do a little video series and try to shed some light on these individuals. This is Otaku Files. Oomori Seiko is considered a pioneer of the anti-idol and alternative idol movements. Her music performances are considered works of art. Many have even said they felt saved after watching her perform live. Her lyrics have touched the hearts of many of the younger generation. Seiko was born in Matsuyama City, located in the Ehime prefecture of Japan. She wanted to become a singer for as long as she could remember. Despite the label anti-idol being associated with her, she was actually a big idol fan herself, being into idol groups like Speed and Morning Musume. In fact, Seiko says that she always liked girls, having a rather strange obsession with them. While she was in elementary school, she participated in a cram school training camp. During it, she asked one of the other girls to take off their underwear and expose themselves. Okay then. Luckily for Seiko, the girl apparently complied. Oh, and that girl happened to be on her period. Win? But just so you know, nothing else happened after that. Oh, but Seiko did do other things too, like constantly peeking into the girls' toilet. As a result of that, they wouldn't let her participate in the brass band competition. Bummer. Her obsession with girls didn't stop there and continued even when she entered middle school. It actually became a full-fledged hobby for her thanks to the internet. Around that time, the internet was becoming quite popular in Japan, with many, including girls, making their own websites about themselves. Seiko would prowl around those kind of websites and even post messages to some girls saying that she was their fan, trying to get as close to them as possible. Of course, it wasn't all about, well, what you'd think it would be about. She just genuinely wanted to know very simple things about them, like what the color of their curtains were, or their underwear. Now, before we move on, during one of her interviews, Seiko talked about something rather shocking that happened to her during her elementary school years. Once, she ran away from home. Around 1 AM while walking on the street, a car that looked like her teacher's car pulled up to her. Seiko thought that it was her teacher and that she was about to get in trouble, but it wasn't her teacher in the car. It was someone she didn't know. A guy that looked like he was in his 30s. He said to her, "How about I buy you some juice?" At that time, she was just afraid of getting into trouble because she was an elementary school student. So she decided to pretend to be a high schooler and she took him up on the offer of him buying something for her to drink, going into his car. After buying her a soda from a vending machine, the man suggested to Seiko for them to go somewhere to rest. That place turned out to be a love hotel. But of course, at that time, Seiko didn't even know what a love hotel was. Within that hotel, there was a condom dispenser. Apparently, this was the type where condoms would have something on them that would tell your fortune. Being into fortune telling around that time, Seiko was looking at the machine and admiring that feature, not aware of what a condom was. The man who took her to the love hotel asked her if she was interested in that sort of thing, probably not talking about fortune telling. She said yes, and that is how she ended up losing her virginity. During it, Seiko says she didn't even know what was happening, saying that it just hurt a little. And she wouldn't know what that act was up until she entered middle school, when everybody started to talk about that sort of topic, and she realized that she had already done it. Apparently, finding out about this act is also what perpetuated her interest in girls. Now, Seiko ended up going to a prep school, and as you can imagine, she stood out quite a lot. Apparently, her artistic side really came out during that time, as she wanted to express that she was being owned by the school. So what she did was take a dog lead chain and wrapped it around her school bag. Then, acting like the bag was her dog, would drag it along the ground using the lead. Suffice to say, the school was pretty pissed, and she almost found herself getting expelled. And no, that wouldn't be the only time that Seiko would find herself in trouble at that school. Unfortunately, at home, she would sometimes get into fights with her parents and even find herself being hit by her father, leaving her with a bruised face. And shockingly, this would end up causing her even more pain with the school. You see, Seiko had a friend that she had known since elementary school. However, this friend would end up finding herself frequently getting into trouble with the authorities. When asked what her name was, she used Seiko's name instead of her own as a way to get out of trouble. The school would find out, and with Seiko having a bruised face, which was perceived as evidence of some sort, she would often end up taking the blame for her friend's actions and made to write out an apology letter each time it happened. Apparently, she wrote a lot of those. Why did her supposed friend do this exactly? Well, Seiko guesses that it was her friend's way of taking revenge because she ended up going to a prep school, leaving her friend behind. On a more positive note though, she says that it was probably thanks to writing all those apology letters that she was able to write a regular blog. Not only that, thanks to her writing skills, apparently for fun, she always had about 10 internet boyfriends that she made through message boards. Holy crap. And yet, no, she wasn't as interested in guys as she was girls. For university, Seiko wanted to leave Ehime. Not that she hated it, but she felt that it was too comfortable for her. She wanted to challenge Tokyo, or at the very least, Osaka. She wanted to do something music related, but oddly enough, not music itself. Seiko felt like music was something sacred that she shouldn't ruin, so she decided to go to Musashino Art University in Tokyo, thinking that maybe she could design CD sleeves. Now you might be asking, well, how did she end up doing music then? Seiko's view of music greatly changed when she started to go to music venues to see bands perform live. This includes punk rock bands such as Ginnan Boyzu, who became one of her favorite bands to see. To her, there was just a lot of shouting, screaming. Some of the band members didn't even seem to know how to play their own instrument. But she thought, this is okay as it is. In other words, Seiko recognized that it was okay not to be perfect in the world of music. Coming from a home with strict parents and being made to learn the piano, being in a brass band, Seiko came to understand how narrow her view of music was up until that point. You didn't need to play perfectly to be in a band, and you didn't need to look the most cute to be an idol either. This new way of viewing music helped encourage her to try and join a band. Initially though, she found it quite tough. She would apply for bands looking for new bandmates, but often things ended up going in a direction that she didn't expect. Her first experience with being in a band first started out with her being in a casual relationship with someone who was in a band. One day she was asked by him if she could take the place of one of his band members who was going through depression. She agreed, but it didn't work out so well. As those familiar with Oomori Seiko's music may already know, she tends to write songs touching on heavy subjects like social pressures, gender roles, or disillusionment with the world. Turns out the other members of the band weren't really feeling Seiko's lyrics, even asking her to change them. As you can imagine, she felt very frustrated and thought that she couldn't express herself the way she wanted to within this band. However, things for Seiko would start looking up. There is a district in Tokyo called Koenji, which is known for having a lot of young residents and being a center for suburban underground culture, including multiple used record and clothing shops. Koenji also has quite a few music venues, some of which where the stage isn't raised, so the band and the crowd are on the same level. In one of these music venues called Muryoku Muzenji, Seiko was asked to perform because one of the performers couldn't make it. With her frustration at the band and needing to feel that creative release, Seiko agreed and performed there by herself. It was a huge success, and the venue owner asked her to come to perform again next month. Seiko had found her musical outlet, and she took it pretty damn seriously. She was constantly thinking about how to make the best of those 30 minutes that she was given to perform in a way that would keep people interested. Just shouting wasn't going to cut it. Whether it was suddenly changing the pace of her singing or specifically adding powerful words at certain periods, she did what she could to try and captivate those watching her perform. One thing's for sure, it certainly worked. She decided that this was her path, and ended up dropping out of university to pursue it. Seiko remained within the indie scene for quite a number of years. In 2011, she would even form her own band called Oomori Seiko and the Pink Tokarefu, with a mix of different styles including catchy melodies you'd associate with J-pop, aggressive punk rock, and traces of inspiration from idol culture. Seiko gained the reputation of being an alternative idol. But with her lyrics touching on more darker and sensitive topics, she was also dubbed an anti-idol, even though, if anything, she actually loves idols. What is also interesting to note is that she would write her lyrics not on a physical notepad, but on her phone. Despite being an indie, Seiko became really popular through word of mouth. The number of shows that she would do would greatly increase, with some shows even being completely sold out. She even performed at the 2013 Tokyo Idol Festival. Eventually, she would get noticed by a major label. The Japanese entertainment conglomerate Avex scouted Seiko. As for major labels, Avex was actually Seiko's #1 choice, so she agreed to sign with them, even though she found the whole contract process a bit cumbersome. Besides her major debut under Avex, another big change in Seiko's life would happen within the same year. She announced she was getting married. At the time, it wasn't made public who her fiancé was, but some years later we now know it was to drummer and DJ Piero Nakano. Huge wins for Seiko, one after another. However, about a year later in 2015, her band Oomori Seiko and the Pink Tokarefu would break up. Seiko stated that the reason for deciding this is that it became difficult for her to do both her solo activities and the band's. But also within that same year, she would give birth to a son. Even to this day, Seiko is still going strong and even puts out regular music videos on her YouTube channel. I'll put a link in the description below so you can check out her channel yourself. Now, some of you might be asking, what about Zoc? Well, we're going to save that for another video, so stay tuned. Anyway, that's going to do it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think. Put your thoughts down in the comment section below. It was pretty shocking, honestly, to find out some of these things about Seiko, some of the things that had happened to her in the past. But yeah, anyway, I hope you did enjoy the video. Thank you so much, guys. Until the next one, take care. Bye.